car seat headrests are back. I'm totally kidding. The Backseat Lovers are back. They're a different band. Backseat Lovers are back with a new album called Waiting to Spill. This record came out in like a month and a half ago, like in October or something. I've been listening to it for the past month and a half, and I really like this record. This record has been everywhere, all over TikTok, all over TikTok. And I like the album, so I was like, I might as well just give my review of why I like this record, and that's what I'm gonna do now. So, the Backseat Lovers are an indie rock band from Utah. That's all I know about them, man. I'm sorry. So we're gonna start with Silhouette, which is a great slow burn introduction for this record. Its production is very dreamy and classic and theatrical, definitely like setting the tone for this whole album in a very angsty and erotic style. I think that would be definitely followed in their second track, Close Your Eyes, where its lyrics definitely come straight out of a high school kid that is just scared of growing up or getting older. And I really like how the artist sort of starts to see this existentialism in a more like self-deprived and and like altruistic way, in the sense that he would like to keep all this existential pain for himself. And I really appreciate that new way and refreshing understanding of what existentialism means, and I really like that. It definitely reminds me a lot of local natives back in the early 2010s. Songs like Empty Washington from their album Hummingbird. And then we go with a song called Growing Dying, which is far more aggressive in its delivery and message. The voice becomes way more clear and loud, almost like Midwest emo style, I'd like to say. The guitar is tragic and dark and electric, and it just explodes, and it makes you just want to close your eyes, just lay in bed and just drift away. It's a beautiful song, and by far probably one of my favorites of this record. Well, we're already like halfway through this album, and we start this second half with a very sad and depressive folk song with a very slow piano that perfectly complements the vocals, which are full of emotion and heartbreak and regret, where the artist desperately tries to just write a song for someone, but he's scared of the words he might be using and how this other person may react to them. It's a very folky and acoustic ballad, but it eventually shifts into a far more aggressive tune, where also the lyrics also take a bit of a change, where the artist suddenly just rips a page and realizes that it doesn't matter what he does or what he writes, everything is already set in stone and it's done, and there's nothing that he can really do, and the only thing left to do is just sing the song, even if this other person is gonna hate it or love it, or doesn't matter. Things are just over at this point. So this is by far the most impressive lyrics of the album, and probably my favorite track, I might say. And I really appreciate it, not only in terms of production, but as I said before, in terms of lyrics, and in terms of just realizing that moving on is not always like this like easy progression to someone nicer. It's just like understanding that you might never get over them, doesn't matter how much time it passes on. Then we go to the next song, which is Snowbank Blues, which is basically the definition of indie folk. It definitely reminds me a lot of Blind Pilot from back in the day, with a very like interesting storytelling, but like a very simple chord progression, where the lyrics are definitely just the main role of the song. This next track is followed by the song Follow the Sound, which is definitely far more different than the previous songs we've been listening to. This one feels more of a celebration, even if the lyrics would kind of like convince you otherwise. Its happy and rhythmic piano are definitely a testament to like a more happier tone that this record has been lacking, which is great to see because it brings a lot of dynamics to this record, which I really appreciate. And it definitely makes you realize that this album is not over yet, and it's not only about folk ballads or indie rock ballads, but there's a lot of like happier indie rock style songs that have in space in this record. This is also proven by their next song called Slowing Down, which is very reminiscent to albums like Dark Eyes by Half Moon Run, where the production is way darker and plastic, and it definitely like feels far more instrumental than in other tracks. And I think it's a way of just coming back to the first tracks of this album, where everything felt more angsty and edgy and a little bit more on the indie rock side of this record. So it kind of like forgets a little bit about all the folky, sad songs that we had in the middle of this record and just comes back to its main sort of like identity, because it still feels very familiar and very cinematic. These theatrics are really not over yet, because on their next song, Know Your Name, things get even more exciting. The classic 90s rock song with a very sort of retro and powerful electric guitar and vocals that are just very, very familiar in a very Tom York style, I dare to say. I mean, the song is just amazing and I really, really liked it. Sadly, we have come to the last song of this album, the closing statement of this record, which is called Viciously Lonely, which, as the title says, is basically just about being lonely and just stuck in town and just being scared of getting older. It's just like a classic sing-along, singer-songwriter style type of song that you can just definitely get yourself lost in. It's definitely something that this album was lacking, was a song that you could just sing along to, because this one doesn't depend too much on production, but just in just plain lyrics and acoustics. So I consider this to be like the perfect closure for this record, and probably by far my favorite song of the album. And it just ends with a beautiful instrumental. And that's the end of this video. This was basically my track-by-track review of Waiting to Spill by the Backseat Lovers. This is my favorite video on the channel, so probably no one is gonna watch it. But I'd like to just start just introducing myself. My name is David. I am from Colombia. As you might have just recognized, English is not my first language. This is Spanish, but I thought that English is a far more like general language that like everyone understands. So my vocabulary is not the best, so I'm trying to get better at it, and I may not sound very good at it, but I'm gonna still trying and just get better day by day. I'm gonna make music reviews, maybe video game reviews, but not many, some video essays later in the run, and I just really hope you like this video. You can support me by just liking this video or subscribing to this new channel. I'll be making more reviews later along the line, and I hope we can keep in touch. Thank you for being here.
Ready for the mosh pit, Shaka Bra.